Nikolai here. Join us. Excellent, and Peter is here as well. Hi, Nikolai. Welcome to the panel.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent, we can hear you. We also have Peter here, but I think he will join the discussion a little bit later.
All right.
All right, so we have a few people here. I think we'll get started. Welcome everyone. This is the Danish Song Cluster's webinar, and the topic is IP strategy and patents. And today we have Esmeralda Klemp from Højberg, and she's going to do an introduction to the subject of patents, what you need to patent, when you need to patent. And then we have also got Nikolai Bisgaard and Peter Garde, also from Højberg. And Peter will join in at the Q&A part, and Nikolai will also join in on the discussion. So if you have any questions, you can write them in the Q&A chat here, and we will take them at the end of the presentation. Otherwise, if you have any general comments, you can write it in the chat. And before we jump in, I have Sina here. She's my colleague in the Danish Song Cluster, and she would just like to say a few words about why we want to do this event today and our network group.
Hi everyone, I'm Sina. I'm a colleague to Shelley in the Danish Song Cluster, and I'm also the facilitator of the network group called IP Strategy and Patents. So why have we initiated this network group? From our industry, we know that when you're responsible of a non-tech but yet critical function in your company, it can sometimes be a kind of a lonely ride. For instance, if you're in charge of what we are going to talk about today, or the sustainability agenda, or testing and approval of audio products, quite often people in these roles, they miss close colleagues within the same field. And that's why they have to look outside their own company to find sparring partners. This situation is obvious for people working in smaller companies and in startups. But it also counts sometimes for people in larger companies, especially when a person is assigned to explore new paths. And that's why we're now inviting profiles from all over the sound industry to join our first network groups. There will be more coming up, but these are the first. And in these groups, the members will join peers from all sizes of companies. They will share their perspectives and challenges, and hopefully gather new professional insights in the specific topics that they gather to discuss and broaden their professional network. So we in the Danish Sound Cluster team, we are responsible for all practicalities, and we ensure effective facilitation so people joining this network can concentrate on the content and on the networking part.
Great, thanks a lot, Sina. So Esmeralda here will do a presentation for us. She has her PhD from DTU in mechanical engineering and worked with different companies on their manufacturing processes. She's going to tell you a little bit more, I think, about her areas of expertise. And yeah, so since working with that, then she moved over to patents and IP strategy. So thanks a lot for being here. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Shelley.
Of course.
Yeah, today I will talk about inventor patents, what to patent, and how to patent. Shelley already introduced. My name is Esmeralda. I work at Højberg, European Patent Attorneys. We give services in life science and also in high tech. I'm in the high tech team. My background is mechanical engineering. I have a PhD from DTU. Work mostly with manufacturing technologies, modeling, simulation of different manufacturing technologies, process monitoring, and 3D printing. The agenda of the day is as follows. We will first see what is a patent, when to patent, and what can be patented. I also would like to give you an overview of the difference between an inventor and actually the owner of the rights of the patent. Then I would like to introduce a patent document and talk more about how to read a patent, the structure of the patent. Patenting is a very long process. Would like to give an overview of different periods during patenting. Finally, I will touch upon software patents. What is a patent? Patent is a contract between the inventor that comes up with an invention and the society. And why do we need this contract? Patent captures the knowledge component and it permits commercialization, the value extraction through commercialization. With this contract, inventor discloses the knowledge component so that the knowledge can be built on top of the patent disclosure. And in exchange, inventor receives rights to exclude other people from exploiting the protected invention for 20 years after filing date. And the patent is disclosed by publication, and that is how also public can have the knowledge of the patent document or the application. And why patents are so important? As mentioned earlier, patents provide exclusive rights which allow the inventor to exclude others from using the invention. Furthermore, it can provide strong market position because the inventor can exercise the exclusive rights by commercializing the product and by preventing others from commercially using the patented invention. Thus, the owner of the patent can reduce the competition and establish a strong market position. Another importance of the patent can be that it can bring higher return on investment. Because again, the inventor brings the invention to commercial market and can obtain higher return on investment. Of course, that depends on the economic utility of the patent. For this reason, the inventor must ensure that the invention is commercially viable before patenting it. It's not always the case that the applicant or the owner of the patent commercialize the product. Sometimes she or he would license or sell the invention to a third party who would commercialize the product. That can also be an option that would bring royalty and revenue. Furthermore, patents can bring a positive image to the company. For the business partners, investors, and shareholders, patent portfolios may perceive as a demonstration. And for example, for startups, it can be used to raise fundings and bring more investors. Thus, it can be also opportunity to raise corporations. I would like to give an example. Have you ever thought why and how 3D printing became popular during the last 1 or 2 decades? Actually, 3D printing have been around for quite a long time, since late 1980s. It was Lisa Cramp and her husband. They wanted to give a present to their daughter, and that would be a frog, a toy frog. And what Scott Crumb did was he used a glue gun, and he loaded this glue gun with polyethylene and candle wax, and he used the gun to produce layer by layer the frog, the plastic frog. Then the plastic would cure layer by layer. And that was the first inspiration for this one of the 3D printing technology, fused deposition modeling, and where he filed it and patented it in 1989. And they founded a company, Stratasys. In 1994, Stratasys had an IPO, and they sold 1.4 million shares, netting approximately $5.7 million. And the market cap raised up to 6.6 billion in 2013. So what is the moral of the story? Moral of the story is think twice before publishing your idea. Why only get fame when you can get fame and fortune? So I'll be even more provocative. Why publish or perish while you can patent and prosper? I know in some fields, know from experience in academia, for example, you want to actually publish in the academic journals. But the common mistake here is that applying for patent application does not avoid you to also publish in the academic journal. One can always apply for a patent application and do experiments and build on top of that and apply for an academic journal. Actually, that would only be more advantageous for publication in the journal. But if you publish before a patent application, then you will probably not able to apply for a patent, because you should not disclose your invention before the application. That would actually bring us to the next topic, when to patent and when not to patent. You should patent when the invention is mature. The invention should be supported by examples in the application. That, though, depends on the business model and the product that you have. You may have a different strategy here, but the application itself should have enough of disclosure so that the public can build on top of the knowledge. While that your product should be mature, you should also be aware of the competitors so that they do not disclose a similar invention before you. That's why it's actually a fine balance to find between having a better idea of the invention and disclosing it before the competitor. But no matter what, as I mentioned previously, never publish your findings. If you are willing to apply for a patent application, and a disclosure does not need to be a written disclosure, it can also be oral disclosure, it can be a conversation with colleagues or friends, that would also be disclosure, and you should first apply for a patent application before disclosing it. Another point here, especially for perhaps for scientists, but also for some other applications that companies apply for, fundings, for example, in an article or anywhere, be careful when you point to what the new findings would be or what the future work would be. So also be careful about that. How about when not to patent? As I said, not everything should be patented or can be patented. Patents may not pay off if it is too expensive, because the patent is a commercial product or a method. So patenting option may be omitted when the commercial gain is less than the patenting expenses. The product, the invention that you would like to patent, get the patent for, may be a fast-moving product, a push product. That may be a scenario where you may not want a patent. Saying that, this is also, that depends on how you can actually draft your application. Perhaps you can draft the application in a function base where you can get a broader protection. Then you may be able to also cover the updated version. It depends on the case. But you may need to consider if it's a fast-moving product. Well, you don't need to apply for a patent if you would like to keep it as a trade secret. That may also be an option. So it may be sensitive know-how, and you may keep it for the company, risking that it may be disclosed later. So my suggestion here is that, let's imagine you have an invention and you are wondering what is the steps, what I should do. You can start by a patent search. For example, you can look at the Google patents, look at different patent documents. If you have an access, you can look at different scientific articles and make sure that your idea is not infringing someone else's patent. And also, by looking at different patent documents, you can see whether or not your invention is already disclosed. Then continue by prototyping. Develop a basic prototype to determine your product's functionality. Define your market as a next step and determine how large is the market. If it is too small, your product may not be commercially viable. Then you may not want to actually patent it. And finally, calculate the cost to manufacture, how much it is going to cost you to manufacture, and what is the profit you are going to get out of it. You also need to commercialize the product, and what is the cost for patenting and getting the patent granted, and evaluate and assess. And what can be patented? Because not everything can be patented. There are some requirements for patentability. First of all, you need to have an invention. We will come to what is an invention later, but for now, think that you need to have a patentable subject matter that is described by law. And your invention needs to be novel. It needs to have a novel feature. I will give an example, take it with a pinch of salt. For example, a chair having a hanger function, a feature of hanger associated with the chair. So is your invention novel? In other words, is this chair with a hanger already disclosed in the prior arts by any other documents, orally or written in any patents? So if this function is new, if there is a function that is not disclosed in the prior art, then your invention will have a novel feature. The next step is to assess the inventive, the obviousness or non-obviousness of feature. Is this hanger feature, is it obvious to put there or not? According to a skilled person in the art. That would be, for example, a chair maker. Is it obvious to put that feature or combine those features for a chair maker? That would be the assessment. And the fourth requirement for patentability is that your invention should be industrially applicable. And the application itself should sufficiently describe the invention. Well, I give an example of a product, and we usually talk from the product, but actually there are different technologies to be patented that can be protected. For example, a method of making that specific chair. Use of a product can be another technology to be patented. Composition or a system or an apparatus, a mechanism, the system comprising different products, for example, can be another technology to be patented. I would like to touch upon the topic of who is the inventor and who is the owner of a patent, especially for large R&D groups or at the universities in the research groups. It may be not as straightforward to determine who is the inventor and who is not the inventor of a patent application. An inventor is a person that conceives the idea. It can be one or more people, and the inventor has the right to be identified in the patent application, but if he or she or they want, they may also be not identified in the patent application. But we can say that an inventor is a person who conceives the idea, who asks a question, and who proposes a solution to solve this problem. So if you conceive an idea without suggesting anything to solve it, then you are not an inventor. If you work according to the instructions from someone else without any other contribution, then this does not make you an inventor either. Being a leader of the department or lab does not mean that he or she can be inventor by default, unless they helps while solving the problem. Person providing obvious parts to the invention, providing a financial support, or merely testing the invention cannot be the inventor, again, if they are not contributing solving the problem. In general, you can have a look at Vancouver recommendations. These recommendations are actually for defining or determining the author of a academic journal. Can actually corresponds well while defining inventor and who is an inventor. So the inventor is the individual who have contributed to the claimed invention. However, inventor may or may not have an ownership of interest in the legal rights of the patent. The assignee is the owner of the patent and have legal rights that a patent offers. In general, the assignee and the inventor relation is determined by the national law. In Denmark, if you are an inventor and if you're working in a company and if your invention is in the field that your company operates, then the rights of the patent belongs to the employer. Next, I'm going to talk about how to read a patent. So imagine that now you have an invention and you found some documents, patent documents, and what you are going to see and what you should have a look at. The first page will be a cover page. There you will find the information of assignee, inventor. You will find an information of which document you are looking at. Is it a granted patent and the filing date? And then it will be followed by a background where you will find the description of the state of the art and the posed problem in the state of the art. Summary of the invention will give you an idea of how this claim patent document solved this problem. Then you will find more details about it, details about the invention. If there are some drawings, detailed description of the drawings. And the documents will be followed by patents, claims, where you will see the scope of protection. As mentioned, how you should read the patent documents can vary. It depends on the purpose of why you are reading it. If you would like to have a general impression, you can have a look at the abstract, which will be also in the cover page, and claims and drawings. And if you think it is relevant for what you're looking for example, for patentability analysis, then you can go through the entire documents. If you are trying to assess whether your invention is infringing someone else's patent, you may want to focus more on the claims. So as I have mentioned, that the claims can be directed to different, directed differently. It can be directed to methods or products. It really depends on what you are commercializing and how you would like to protect your invention. So it can change from case to case. So at Hoiberg, we work closely with inventors. For example, in high-tech field, we work in teams, and there are a physicist, and I'm a mechanical engineer, and there are electronic engineers. So depending on the field of your invention, we will be two people helping to you and trying to understand your invention, and we have the technical background, and we also have the legal background, so we can actually draft the claims accordingly, because there are also national differences in law, and it's really important how you draft the claims. And they are not necessarily very easy to read because of the strict legal language. So we need to be sure that they are interpreted how we want it to be. Yeah. So I actually would like to talk further about the claims. I mentioned about the scope of protection. That is what your invention claims and what you protect. That is described by claims. So we try to draft the claims, therefore, as broad as possible to enable the inventor to have a broader protection. Imagine that X in the middle is the invention, and that is what the inventor comes up with and claims that he or she has that invention. So we then ask questions to the inventor, because we try to realize the broader scope of that, where this invention works. This broader scope of protection would be then this blue circle. For example, like invention may be found to work with a specific mechanical component. Inventor may found something that works with screw specifically. And then we ask questions to realize if that mechanism would work also with a bolt. And by asking those questions, we try to understand the functionality of the invention. Then we draft the claims in a way that layer by layer, so we call it fallback position. So we would draft the claim, not the claiming screw or bolt, but perhaps a joining mechanism. That would be the blue bigger circle. And underneath, we would define screw and bolt and different detailed fallback positions. It's also because, as mentioned earlier, depending on the national proceedings, the examiner may be ready to accept a narrower or more broader claim. So it's important to have many fallback positions. This is actually another way of illustrating the scope of protection. I think I'm gonna skip this. Again, the invention may be seen as this Kengen D5, but it can be protected in a way that the entire chessboard is captured. Unless there is a prior art, is shown by X, then by having different fallback positions, we can still ensure that we have a broad protection. I would like to talk about the patenting process. It's a long process. We have 3 main periods: priority year, PCT phase, and national phase. Before we start, we evaluate the patentability of the invention, commercial relevance, and whether or not it should be supported further. And then we work with the inventors, and we draft the application and file the application. During the priority year, inventor can work further on the invention, do, for example, more experiments, and which can be added to the priority application before entering the PCT phase, what we call international phase. This would also give time to the inventor or the assignee to raise fundings, for example, with the application. In the international phase, in the PCT phase, we receive search report and a written opinion. And 30 months after the first priority application, you will choose the countries that you would like to seek the protection. And the national phase, the national proceedings may take different time. It depends from region to region or country to country. And then you will hopefully get your patent granted. In this last part of my presentation, I would like to talk about so-called software patents. We hear somehow often that there is a belief that the software-related patents, related inventions are not patentable. There is clearly a confusion because actually software-related patents can be patentable. In European Patent Convention, EPC, there isn't any positive definition of what is an invention. And you will remember that one of the requirements for patentability is that it should be an invention. So if you look at Article 52.2, it reads, following shall not be regarded as invention: mathematical methods, programs for computers. So when looking at only 52.2, yes, following should not be regarded as invention. And if it is not an invention, it cannot be patentable. However, if you look at the addendum, Article 52.3, only to the extent to which patent application relates to subject matter as such. So this means that the application cannot be refused as relating to computer program as such. So it may relate to the computer program. It can be a tool that is used within the invention. So non-invention is when the activities are purely based on abstract concepts. Then this is not an invention. The key concept here is that the invention should have a technical character. And what is a technical character? The term technical has not been defined, but under the regulatory rules, you can find that technical character must relate to a technical field, must concern a technical problem, and must have technical feature. And the technical has been addressed by a number of Board of Appeal decisions, and that is in a gray zone actually, and depending on the decisions of the Board of Appeal, we can interpret or we can understand what can be accepted or is accepted as a technical and what not. But in general, invention should involve a technical teaching. For example, instruction to solve a particular technical problem using technical means. Thus, a computer program performing an action or function on a computer has a technical effect because the electric currents, they flow, and some certain steps are executed in the computer. Thus, actually, when it is carried out by a computer, then it actually has a further technical effect. So the software may become technical if they are directed to computer implemented methods or computer readable storage medium. So until now, we show that what is defined as not an invention by EPC and technical character, those both are in the gray zone, and that's what makes it a little bit more not straightforward when it comes to software patenting. It's because there are actually two burdens here. The first burden is to decide whether or not your invention has a technical character. And the second burden is afterwards novelty and inventive step assessment. Whereas in many other inventions, it's novelty and inventive step assessment. But here you have an extra assessment of whether or not the subject matter has a technical character. Perhaps some examples here can be useful. So the invention must have a technical character. And if you would like to assess whether or not your invention has a technical character, you can think it has, for example, impact on a computer. Further technical effects may be an impact on computer. It may enhance energy, speed, or efficiency of the computer. They may be interpreted as further technical effects. Or it can be a software or mathematical model for controlling a device or process. That may also be a further technical effect. For example, a software for controlling brake in a car, it has a further technical effect. Those are from the decisions, board decisions, the ones that are actually acknowledged as having further technical effect. Faster communication between mobile phones, secure data transmission, resource allocation in an operating system, those are acknowledged further technical effects. However, if your invention relates purely to an abstract software, concept, then it may not have further technical effect, and then it may not be an invention, actually. Some examples that are not accepted as having a further technical effect are aesthetical effects, new rules for an auction scheme, selling and booking sailing cruise packages. It's a business model. Calculation of a pension contribution. This is pure mathematical, so they are not technical. How about the apps? Apps are actually they are a piece of softwares. It's actually can be mix of software and hardware. They can take the advantage of the sensors. They may be correlated with the sensors that how they work. So they are indeed patentable. Before patenting an app or applying for a patent application for your app, you may consider the following factors. You may consider if your technology is of interest to a large group. Do you think that it's going to have a reasonably long lifetime? Do you think it's new and inventive? How does it serve to your overall business strategy? So it is indeed patentable, but you may have some questions to ask yourself or your patent attorney. When it comes to AI is also by definition computer implemented. It can fall under as such, and it is definitely possible to protect artificial intelligence-based inventions. For example, you may have a new model, you may have a new improvement. Training in a new way is actually one of the common, one of the things that we see more often. Applied in a new way, those may be some features that your invention has, and then it may be patentable. Again, it has the same conclusion actually. Does it have a technical contribution, and does the technical contribution provide novelty and inventive step? Then your idea probably can be patentable if you can answer yes to them. Protecting mathematical methods for more straightforward application or protection, you may seek for protection for technical application. Then it becomes technically, then it has a technical aspect. For example, using a neural network in heart monitoring apparatus to identify irregular heartbeats, that is patentable. So, short answer to a question, is software patentable? Yes, it is indeed patentable, if technical. To assess the technical effects, you can also think it as having a technical effect in the real world. Not only pure, but in the real world, to a computer or to an apparatus. Then it should be novel and inventive. What is important, though, is the claim wording, because depending on how the invention is disclosed and how the claims are described, it may be more straightforward to support the technical effect of your invention. And also it makes a big difference from national proceedings to national proceedings or regions. In Europe, when there's difference, for example, between Europe and US. When it comes to pros and cons of software patenting, software solutions have shorter lifetime, may have shorter lifetime, may not. They may have several solutions to a same problem, to solve the same problem. Again, that will again, it tells us actually that the claim wording or the drafting is important. Perhaps you may be able to protect your invention based on functionality, such that you may be able to protect it broader. It also depends on your product and your business model. If it's top down, you may actually follow another IP strategy. In general, scope of the protection may be broad, depending on the claim language, and if it's a strategical software patent, it may be extremely valuable as well. Before finishing my presentation, I will touch upon some general considerations before filing. As mentioned, you should think how it actually suits with your business strategy or your business model, because IP is indeed a business management tool. Would you like to patent your knowledge, or would you like to keep it as a trade secret? Your invention, could it be reverse engineered? Can you actually detect if a third party infringes your invention? Ask those your questions, and perhaps you may not need to patent, or you may not want to patent. Another risk may be being targeted for litigation if you patent. But apart from that, the business strategy, the invention itself also should be questioned. Does it meet patentability requirements? Would you be able to protect the area that you are aiming for? How about the lifetime of the invention or lifetime of the protection you would get? Those are some questions, open questions or risks that you may want to consider before applying for patents. Thank you very much. I think we can continue with question and answers, and you're very welcome to contact us.
Thank you, Esmere. That's great. I will just bring in our Nikolai and Peter in case there are any questions here. So Nikolai has worked for GN for 30-something years, and he has a lot of experience with bringing products onto the market. So that is why we invited him here. And Peter is a colleague of yours. Here he is. Hi, Peter. Thanks for being here. So I wrote some questions myself in the chat as you were speaking. Whenever I looked into patents some years ago, I basically was put off at the first hurdle because there are so many patents out there. So what is the best way to ensure that something isn't already patented? And I gave the example when I searched for 3D audio, there are 96,000 results, and I don't, it's very complex language a lot of the time. And so is there a good way to, or is that just something you employ someone like yourself to do for you?
I think you can start by doing it yourself if you think you can handle it. Also depends on the field, as you say. In this case, you get 96,000, but in some cases you may get actually less hits. It is recommended to get a professional opinion. It's also because it's may be more tricky to read the claims and what they protect. But in principle, you are the inventor, and you have an idea of your field as well. So what is that you think that you are finding as a new in the field? Perhaps focusing search in that region may limit it. But then again, you should be also aware that you're not actually misinterpreting or missing some documents because of the claim language.
Yeah, if I use another word instead, maybe I won't see that, and there's still 13,000, maybe not 96,000, but it's still
But Shelley, to take the example you chose,
yeah.
3D audio. When you get a result like that on Google, you know that you're not the first one to think about 3D audio. So then you have to ask yourself, did I develop any particular new feature associated with 3D audio that might be patentable? Then you should try to find keywords that describes the things that you think you have contributed and add those to the search to see if the things you did also come out with 600 references. If it does, you are probably not going into a field where the likelihood of you having a patent is going to be very high. And the difficult part here is a little bit, and I'm not saying this to insult the patent attorneys. You can probably always find something to patent. I mean, there's always, adding a ton of limitations into a claim. You can come up with a combination of features that is patentable. The problem is that the scope of protection is so narrow that anybody could easily work around it, in which case you will have to ask yourself, is this worth spending my money on? It probably isn't. If you have, 16 limitations in a patent claim, you just have to miss one of them and then you're not infringing. So, the shorter, the simpler it is, the bigger the likelihood is that you can get a really valuable patent. I think my pet example was always the guy, Singer, who invented the sewing machine. He had a very, very short description and a very simple claim saying a machine for sewing clothes that has a needle with a hole in the pointy end. Period. It's really hard to make a machine for sewing that doesn't have that feature. That was simple, and it was extremely difficult to work around, and so he owned that field for 20 years pretty much. So the simpler the language is to describe your patent, the more likely it is that it's going to be highly valuable. So this is not said to discourage people, but it is important to go out and test also for prior patents, because if you add a feature, let's say you have a ballpoint pen, and you say, my great invention is I have a ballpoint pen with a looking glass attached at the end. You can maybe have that patented, but if somebody else has a patent to the ballpoint pen as such, you cannot go out and sell your invention without a license to his patent. In which case you will have to consider again, is this now going to work? If the patent on ballpoint pens expired 5 years ago, you can go ahead. But if the patent is still alive, you will be restricted to have a license from the owner of the idea of a ballpoint pen, to sort of pick a very simple example.
So it is easy. Well, it sounds like to me that it's always going to be easier to invent a physical product in combination with the software rather than software alone.
Software alone, as we were explained, is not easy. You have to show that the software is bringing you a technical advance somewhere. Then you can protect the way the software was designed to bring that advance forward. We do that in hearing aids all the time, that we say this is a hearing aid with some software that can do A, B, and C. That is patentable, but if we said that the software itself was patentable, we would never get anywhere. And the likelihood that it was used in other fields, maybe one of the things you did not mention, Esme, is that patents are also divided into patent classes. So different products fall in different classes. And if you apply for a limited range of classes, the likelihood that you get your patent is probably higher than if you want to cover the entire world of anything and everything. So that also, we know that, in hearing aids, we apply in the hearing aids patent class. And if we can show an inventive effect within hearing aids of something that has been used in other contexts, we will have a good chance of getting the patent, but only for hearing aids and not for anything else. So that is also part of the game, that if you are in a very narrow niche market, the likelihood that you can take a general technique and show that you have a benefit in your particular niche is actually higher than if you want to say, I want to own this for anything in the world.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nikolai. We have some questions from our audience here, from Piotr. Hi, I already hold a patent already granted regarding with balanced armature speakers used for in-ear monitors and hearing aids. Can the Danish Sound Cluster help me with wider commercialization, like license or selling patents to bigger companies? Maybe if we speak to Nikolai.
I don't think the Danish Sound Cluster has any particular competence per se to go out and do that. We could consider to have some sort of marketplace feature on a website where you could say if anybody is interested in licensing this. But otherwise, you will have to try and imagine what companies would be interested in such a patent because of the value of the invention you have made.
But we certainly have some contacts with the 3 hearing aid companies for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had some other questions from earlier. I was thinking a lot about all of these audio processing algorithms could often be considered as aesthetic. I don't know if you have experience patenting some kind of spatial enhancement algorithm at Højberg.
I think it might be considered aesthetic, but there's a technical process behind this. So I mean, it would be no problem patenting something like that. I mean, yes, the human perception is aesthetic, but yes, there's technical solutions behind it. So it wouldn't be an issue.
And
I see that the guy who asked the question about whether we can help him with his patent also said, I mean, he meant networking wise. And I think, I mean, if you look at the member list of the Danish Sound Cluster, you will likely find a large group of companies that has an interest in sound. So that will at least narrow your search for possible partners for your patent instead of going, you know, in any conceivable corner of society.
Yeah, that is true. We have a question from Dr. Satish. We have filed for PCT and are at national phase in India. What are your thoughts on other countries other than Europe and North America to think of? Do you work in other regions?
It depends on the where you would like to commercialize your product and where your competitors are. So to say, where you would like to protect your invention so that the others don't exploit it. So it's depends on your market actually, where you should enter in the national phase.
There's an awful lot of countries in the world, and you have to look at it as is being said from a market point of view. You must have protection in all the important markets. You could say if you really think your application has broad importance or broad application across the world, I would add maybe China and Japan to the list. But once you are past, you know, US, Canada, Europe, Japan, China, the list of important countries is for most products not very long then, because they might be able to produce the product in another country and sell it locally, but they will not be able to export it into the markets where you have patent protection. So I think, I mean, where I came from, we use those countries I just mentioned. I mean, rarely did we go beyond US, Europe, Japan, and China. Because that, if you count that for us, that is 80–90% of the total world market. And that is enough for anybody not to think it's a great idea to infringe our patent.
Makes sense. If we have some other, I don't think we do. I had another question if we have time for that. Is what happens if I apply for patents on my software, say audio software, and it gets granted, and then we later find out that there is actually something already on the market and it was there 4 years ago, but we didn't know about it. So there was previously another inventor, but it wasn't patented. Does it mean that I still am the inventor?
But then your patent is probably invalid. It just hasn't been discovered by the authorities, patent authorities.
Okay.
The other person selling a product that is covered by your patent is very likely to have a good chance to have your patent invalidated if he so wish. I will though say, and I mean also the comment you made about scientific publications, it is true that you should not publish your inventions too detailed before you file for patent applications. But I will say though that my experience with oppositions through the years has been that unless you find something that is very compelling piece of prior art in scientific literature, the patent authorities, they have a strong favor to other patent publications. So it has to be very detailed and specific to make your patent invalid. But I mean, this has always been said, and I just think I have to say that in my many years in the patents, also, you know, having all sorts of litigation and what have you, to bring these sort of prior thoughts expressed by people into the game is not as easy as it should be. I think it sounds right, but it is in reality not so easy, which also means that if you don't go into very fine details, you can actually publish something, but you don't have to publish all the details because some of these might be very important for your invention, you could say.
Okay. Thanks, Nikolai. Do you have anything else to add, Peter or Esme?
Not at the moment.
No, thank you.
No. Well, then in that case, I think we will finish up for today. Thank you very much for being here and presenting to us. I think it was a great introduction, and I hope that some of our attendees here may join us again in our network group. And if you could please take a minute and fill out the evaluation form afterwards, that would be very helpful for us. Everyone will receive it by email in just a moment. And thank you very much to Peter and Nikolai and Sina for joining us here and sharing your perspectives as well on the topic.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye for today.
Bye.
Bye-bye.